Hey everyone, welcome to episode 112 of the Fitness Devil podcast. Today we got Luka Hocevar on here. We just let Luka loose. He just talked for a lot. He talked about coaching and culture and community. He's big on giving. We talked about his end game ambitions for his business in Renton, just outside of Seattle. We get into a whole bunch of stuff about his identity, once being a professional basketball player and shifting into the fitness industry. You just got to dive into this one and explore it because I can't adequately summarize it here in an introduction. Just check out Luka and enjoy this episode. Thank you.
Shut up and sit down.
We're good. We're live.
We're live.
All right, cool, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for joining us again. So this podcast comes out of 2 years ago. I went down to a fitness conference in Renton, Washington. That's just outside of Seattle. And it was just right around the time we were launching our first episode. And so I met in person someone I've been following for quite a while. It's Luka Hocevar. So Luka's joining us. And we talked about, in fact, I remember asking Luka to come on the podcast, and you've been on my list of people I wanted. So we're finally delivering on this. So, brother, thanks for being on here today.
It's my pleasure, man. I'm excited to talk. Who knows what with you guys?
Good. He wouldn't shut up about getting you on for the last year. So he plugs Vigor Ground once a month, just because that was one of the biggest conferences that set he opened his eyes onto what was kind of possible in the industry. So good.
Yeah. So a little background, I guess, just for anyone who is a regular listener of ours who doesn't know Luka is, I got a feeling a lot of you guys do. So Luka owns Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance, and that's in Renton, in Washington. And it's become a mecca of coaching, of fitness business knowledge. Luka's a big educator in our industry, hosts a lot of seminars. Like if there's a facility that has a lot of in-service seminars, it's Vigor Ground. So your coaches are always being educated in all kinds of cool stuff. And I obviously went to the Vigor Ground Fitness Business Conference. It was 2 years ago. You had one again on the same fucking weekend as our Evolve Canadian Strength Symposium, which was just bad luck. So we actually, Luka and I chatted, and so we made sure we didn't overlap for next year because I want to go again. And you also have both the Vigor Life podcast and the Yo the Business and Fitness podcast. So when I say that I like and enjoy prolific content creators and people who are just out there in the fitness space, social media can almost create a skewed image, but dude, you're involved in everything. And then of course, I love the whole history. You're actually a Slovenian export, and you played professional basketball in Europe, and you turned into this influential fitness guy in North America. So guys, please welcome them. So let's get right into this.
No, let's just stop. I kind of heard it, all right. But you played professional basketball. That doesn't even show up on your Instagram.
No, I don't think you know what, maybe, yeah, I'm completely fucking up my profile, I guess. Because I think it would be better for my positioning if I said ex-pro basketball.
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's it was a huge part of my life. We could kind of dive into that. Basketball really kind of, I would say, not just guided me, but saved me in many ways. Cause I had a really, really, kind of stint of being in I did a lot of dumb stuff, but from age 14 to 18 plus, actually, and beyond, I was involved in a lot of dumb stuff, organized crime, and ball was the thing that made me make a decision to actually come to the US and play college ball, which kind of proceeded to, that was eventually the reason I ended up here anyways, because I played pro overseas. But, I fell in love with a girl in college, my college sweetheart, ended up marrying her. And that's what made me move to Seattle. And I've been divorced now for 6 years, but it's kind of what set the wheels in motion. And two, all the stuff that I do today, the values and because I always had somebody who goes would have been great if, you made it to the NBA or this, that, or the other, or wasn't it a waste, or, and I'm like, man, all the virtues, or a lot of the virtues that I hold today and that matter a lot to me, I built through that, discipline, hard work, work ethic, team play, teamwork, loyalty, all those things are heavily ingrained through pretty much, 15 years of playing and, at a level that's, I don't know, think practice 5 hours a day type stuff, so, sacrifices, where other kids will go have summer breaks, I'd have 2-a-days, so ball was huge in my life. And the coaches, not actually, let me make sure that I give homage to the people that really made, a huge difference in my life. And probably one of the reasons to why coaching was so attractive to me on an intrinsic level was that, there were people in my life that guided me to essentially save me, and created this kind of new path that led me here today. Why I'm also so fired up to be in coaching, I mean, that's a really quick story, but
What I think a lot of people don't realize, like, and I play college sports, and like when you say you played ball, like it was life, because like you're saying, like practice every day, like you practice every day, you watch film, like you hang out with the players. If you haven't been part of that, you don't really understand that, like it has no other option but to shape you, because it's your whole life for a long stretch.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, here's something kind of interesting that we could dive into. I'm certainly of the age, I only played high school sports. I never got into college stuff, but, athletics was huge for me. And you and I, Luka, are at least of that age where we be retired now for professional sports. We made it. We know that, right? So right now, like, your career is flourishing in the industry with a, really bright future. But when you think about pro sports, you get into your mid 30s, late 30s, certainly. I mean, how many guys are still playing, professional sports at 40 years of age? I'm 41. So that's the end of that. Now, some people take it further, but a lot of athletes get really lost because their entire identity is completely wrapped up in them playing their sport. So it's like, what do they do next? And, I think as fitness professionals, our identity gets wrapped up in it, but at least there's no aging out within the fitness industry. So I don't know what you think about all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've been around it enough. I mean, I personally had like definitely a dilemma when I had to make that choice, and I made the choice of like, okay, I'm going to be done with, pro basketball, right? And you have this like, well, who am I if I'm not there? This thing that I've put so much into. I think that's the bigger thing, is that when you sacrifice so much, and then to have to go like, not that it's not going to work out, because I could have kept playing. I can tell you straight up, I made a decision because I was like, I don't want to be good at it. One was like, I don't want to be good at anything. I don't want to be good at this or very good at this. I want to be like the best in the world at something that I love to do. So that was definitely one of the things. The other was that I was seeing things around me. Like I grew up, I played with the best of the best, Goran Dragic, who's still the starting guard for the Miami Heat, friend of mine, guys that aren't in the league anymore, but Ben Udrih, 2 rings with the Spurs, Rašo Nesterović, 2 rings with the Spurs. I actually played with Luka Doncic's dad at Slovan. Luka Doncic will be one of the greatest players. I think he will probably be the greatest player from Europe to ever play in NBA. I mean, the kid's insanely good. But then I had a lot of friends that played on a super high level, in the Euro League, and made pretty good money. And I saw, for instance, a friend get injured and then like have a 9-month kind of like injury, and the next year he's worth 50-60% of what he was the year before, and struggled and this, that, the other. It's a tough industry. It's not like, I think people watch, NBA, NFL, and they go like, oh, you're a pro athlete, so this is what it is. And it's like, no, it's not. And even those guys, we know the stats. I mean, 75, I think it's like 75% of the players end up going bankrupt, or 70+%. I don't know.
Yeah, it's high.
In like 2 years.
Yeah, the average NFL career now, I think, is 2.7.
There's just a story.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's just a story, a fairly famous former NHL enforcer, because a lot of Canadians listen to this. And, I know there's a lot of Americans too, but it was not George Laraque. Actually, someone mixed up his picture and posted George Laraque, but a guy named Donald Brashear, and he was working in a Tim Hortons in Quebec. Now, some people are sort of like making like negative light of it, but man, like it's a dude who's just doing something positive. So I don't look down upon that at all. But he's also a guy who made millions of dollars in his NHL career, and turning around and he's working in a place like Tim Hortons. Well, that sort of speaks to this. So, and you don't know the story, you don't know what's going on there. He's a NHL enforcer, so you could be dealing with things like CTE and some of the mental, emotional struggles, the physical repercussions of years of concussions. So there's all that shit, right? Mike Tyson's a really super famous example of a guy who, I guess, lost it all. He's managed to stay a celebrity, but he was fucking
I mean,
throwing money around.
we could go on and on, but I think the conversation, it's like what, I guess looking back now, a couple of things, right? Like you said, if most sports, if you make it to 35, you've had a pretty damn good career. I mean, there's very few Vince Carters in this world, but
Yeah.
it's like, I think 22 years, who's a legend, but but it's beyond that. Like, so let's say if your passion and purpose is, for instance, basketball, and you play till you're 35. Okay, and you're done at 35, and let's say you've built some security up and you have some money, but forget about that. Like, even if you could survive, which very, very, very few people could playing a pro. Like, let me just say that. Like, I've played with some of the best, and there's even very few of I said players that played in the league in Europe, like in the top leagues for 10 years, just have enough money to then be fine for the rest of their life. Like, very, very few. So, which means that at, like, for instance, 35, now you have to either invest that money somewhere or start a bit. Like, you got to go do something. Yeah, right. And you have another 50 years of life left. So, and that's where the crisis can sometimes come in. And it does come back to, this whole idea of, what, and it sounds so cliche and foo-foo-ish, but, fulfilling work and meaningful work. And like, what is my purpose? What is my, what are my values? What are my unique abilities? And there's a great book that I wanted to kind of revert back to, because we're talking about identity, and it's, when it comes to identity, and we have this attachment to who we are. It's called Soul for Happy, from Mo Gaudat. He used to be actually, I think still is, but like super high up engineer at Google, and ended up making tons of money, like started his own companies, and but lost his son when his son was only 21, like unexpectedly. And really kind of obviously had to deal with that, and it was challenging. And what I liked about it is that he said, I read a lot of books about happiness, and they're all like very, very, up there in the ether. Like, it's, it's very foo-foo-ish, right? And he said, I'm an engineer. He said, I needed to understand it from an happiness from an engineering kind of like way, with formulas, and man. And he wrote this book, and it's phenomenal. But a lot of it, in there, he says, there's all these blind spots that we have in life, and one of them is like this whole idea of, even like, if I take away your name, are you not Andrew? You know what I mean? Am I, if you take my name, like, am I not me? Who is me? Right. So, and he does it in a way that it's not like, it's really, really well written, but it made me think about that whole thing, right? Like, this whole identity, where I think that the things that we do in life, we cast, James Clear talks about this, right? Every day, whatever you do repeatedly, you cast a vote for who you are. You cast a vote for identity. So I played basketball for hours and hours and hours a day for decades almost. I mean, pretty much, and it was like, I cast so many votes for that it was like, I am a basketball player, right? And but then if you attach to that with your whole emotion and stuff, right? When you stop being a basketball player, it's like, now it's like it kind of destroys your whole worldview and then self-view. Who am I now? Like, fuck, like, I'm also, and then for me, it was like, I cast a lot of votes for like, I'm a drug dealer too, and it's like, and then I had, and I had a lot of, it was like, well, fuck, I had this whole dilemma, almost like this existential crisis of, I had to think, like, who do I want to become, right? And fitness was like, I've lifting weights since I was 14 years old. My mom opened a gym as her second, like, she worked at the bank. She opened a gym with a friend, so she worked half the day at the bank and the next whole half the day at the gym. And at 14, I started lifting weights, and I was a scrawny kid. So I was like, trying to, like, I was never picked in ball. And like, that's why I had a chip on my shoulder, and I started lifting, and, I had some really good role models, including one of the top powerlifters in the country at that time, trained at our gym. And crazily enough, these two guys, one of his name was Aljaž Pegan, who was a 5-time world champion in the straddle, and also Olympic medalist. So gymnastics guy that would come up and they'd show me stuff, and which was pretty cool. So I started lifting off the right way, because a lot of those guys, and got stronger, was able to jump higher. So like, that really kind of got me to buy into fitness, and strength and performance. And I got really, really kind of geeked out by it. So by 15, I was already like reading all these books and studying everything. And I ended up training under one of the top track and field coaches, Srđan Đorđević, like really hard to say. Like I'll give you $100 if you can say that shit real quick. So I was training with, and he trained Marilyn Adi and Brigita Bukovic, silver medalist in '92 Olympics. So on the 110-meter hurdle. So I was just getting like all this, knowledge, and I was entrenched in it. I mean, I was reading fucking like Speed Trap from Charlie Francis, like when I was like 17 or whatever, So
Jesus.
Yeah, so I was really, but the thing is, but at no point in time am I like, I want to be a coach. It was like, hey, I want to be a savage, I want to dunk on people, have unlimited conditioning, be jacked. Like that was because I was insecure. So I had to like seek the significance through these different things, and so my journey really started in physical preparation at like 9-10 years old, when I was really already starting to play basketball at a high level for that age. And then at 14 I started lifting weights, so I'm basically 24 years into lifting without ever pretty much missing more than 10 days, I think. So and that what was happening is that in the background I was casting a lot of votes for, I'm a fitness guy, I'm a performance guy. So, after I came to this decision of like, I'm, and then in college, I ended up doing a minor. I did I was kind of like, well, what fuck, I'm going to play pro ball. So who gives a shit what I take? But, I'll take business. Business is, I guess business is good, right? I got to do business. But then I was so intrigued in all the other stuff that I was taking like basically anatomy and kinesiology, and I ended up getting a minor because one of my professors were like, well, dude, you're doing so many of these electives, why don't you fucking get a minor in exercise science kinesiology? I was like, all right, well, I'll do that. But once again, like no thought process around like I will be a coach, right? And I started but I started enjoying it so much that I was playing pro ball, and my brother actually, who played, pro soccer, was training some people with kettlebells. And there's a whole story around kettlebells that, we started doing them in like, I don't know, like 2001 or something, like long time ago. There's a handball player in Slovenia that coached me and my brother, and it got me really into it. And long story short, my brother's like, hey, listen, I got these 4 guys I'm coaching. Like I it's kind of like a side thing. Can't do it anymore. I know you love training. Like you've already been training. Like, and I was training teams, like my basketball team, like hired, like my coach was like, dude, who coaches you? And I was like, I just write all my own programs, and he's like, what? Because I was 206 and fucking tomahawk dunking. And, so he's like, well, would you write the programs for the team? I was like, yeah, like throw me an extra, $250 a month. I'll do it. And I did. Oh yeah. I was like, I was doing whatever it took, man. So that's how it started. And my brother was like, man, you want to take these 3-4 guys? I was like, fuck it, I'll take them. Started training them, and it was all kettlebell stuff with those guys because that's what they were doing. And they fucking loved it, and like they got great results. And they go to my brother and they go like, look, man, it's like you're good and stuff, but there's something about your brother. I don't know what it is, but like but he's like, this is what he should be doing, right? And I never even thought, my brother tells me that, like I never even really thought about it, but I loved it, right? It was like I wouldn't need to make $1. I was just enjoying myself. And I think part of it was that whole idea of like coaching, giving back, like the thing that changed my life, it inspired me to do that for others. And that last year that I played for Triglav, to play pro, like I actually ended up being like practice in the morning. Then I'd coach like 4, 5, 6 hours between outdoors. We had this place in Tivoli we'd coach. I'd coach at a gym. I was writing articles for him. It's called Socko. It's like this big franchise. And it started getting so crazy that like I had to tell people like, well no, I can't. Like I got a fucking professional basketball game night. Like so it was kind of nutty, man. It really was. But that helped because when I decided, like I cast enough votes there to when I had this existential dilemma, I was like, man, like I think this is the path that I want to go. And so when I moved to the States, because we started our first gym actually about 9 months before I ended up moving to Seattle with me. So it was me, my brother, one of my friends, Gigo, and we started it. Basically, I convinced them. I was like, we got to open a gym. It was the first, like, I think what a lot of people don't know, it was like it was the first gym that was a functional training gym in Slovenia. What we would consider functional.
And it's still
functional.
going to this day, right? Your brother still runs it there in Slovenia.
Yeah, my brother, to my best friends, another guy, Grega. Like we have 450 members. It's the number. I mean, like it is the gym. Like it's the gym.
If I remember correctly, you guys did you bring Dean Somerset and Tony Gentlecourt in there to do their workshop at one point?
Yeah, so I mean, we basically, we what we've done there is, I mean, we can't do it at the frequency that I do it in Seattle, but every single year now, like we've had Eric Cressy, Mike Robertson, Joel Jameson, Martin Rooney, Dean and Tony. We had Lee Taft. We have a lot of top guys come over there, and we do our own education that we run, and we get other coaches from the country to come through. I think we got Pat David. I think we're getting Pat Davidson for next year.
Oh, yeah. Huge buddies with Pat.
Yeah, my boy.
Yeah, Pat's a special dude. Likes to stir fucking things up. That's what I like. I mean, I don't know him well, but
he's, you know what? This is a horrible term, but like he was like dubbed like the terrorist of the fitness industry, and like
I have joy when I see one of Instagram posts pop up, because I just see people cringing reading it, and I'm like.
The problem with his stuff too is he's a PhD, so if anyone says shit to him, like he lives it and is like brilliant, and like if you looked at him and didn't know him, you'd be like, this guy is a complete idiot. Like you're gonna post that on Facebook and they just get ass with it.
I love it. I mean, because the thing I actually was talking to Pat because I want to get him out to Vigor in 2020 as well. I mean, it's becoming so crazy now that like I've never, when I look at 2020, I legitimately have to go, where do we even fucking have space to put? We have so many events already lined up for next year. I mean, we got Mark Chang, we got FRA, I just talked to Brett Bartholomew, so we're going to do an apprenticeship. We almost every year we have John Russin come back. We'll probably have another CPCS with Joe D and Smitty. I mean, it's crazy. Like we have to really think through. And then there's the summit, and so my goal is kind of to have at least 8, but more like 10 external seminars every year. Or in staff. Yeah, which is, I mean, it's outrageous. We've had in the last 10 years we've had 72.
Yeah.
And
which is insane.
When you've run events now, like we've done it now too, like even the concept of running an event is a lot of work. It's not just like you hire someone and shit, it just happens. Like that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean the thing is the ones at the gym, I've done so many now that they're not that difficult. Now the summit, the summit is another ball game. That is let's just put it this, and I'll say this: my stress levels of putting it on have lowered because I've gotten a better with having event planners to help out a lot, and the Vigor team, and everything's just, once you've done it a number of times, it becomes less stressful. But it's still a crazy big undertaking. I mean, and I don't I'm very transparent about stuff, so I don't mind. Actually, I like to share as much as possible about the behind the scenes stuff. Like this year, was the first year I'm like, all right, I think we can break even on this fucking thing, and no, and what ended up happening is that we ended up actually buying breakfast both days for 230 people and lunch one day for 230 people. And the hotel was like, dude, there was more people than we expected. The foods ran out, and I was like, fuck it, cook more food,
Yeah.
And just to cook. When I said that sentence, cook more food, well, that was $17,000 right there.
Jesus.
So just so people understand that one sentence can cost you $17,000 when you run big events. And so that event cost more than 6 figures to put on, and this it's been like, that's the third event that we put on has been more than 6 figures. But I'll tell you what. So, and this hopefully is a lesson for just business, I guess. I always think about the person that's coming. Like I don't want to cut corners. I don't want to skip. I think about how can this person have an incredible experience, and I'm not going to be cheap, and put $1 in my pocket, but then the experience is not going to be what I want it to be. And of course, we sell stuff on the back end, thankfully. I mean, you have to, obviously, just the fact that it makes sense. But but I always, for the actual event, I always think about the experience and like, how can it be better than anything else that they've ever attended, and that whole, thought process of like, hey, if somebody paid $400 or $397 or $497, like that they won, they're like that, like I could go home and I was like legit. So yeah,
I was gonna like follow up with that, so that way, like I was there, so I was an attendee of that event, and it was memorable. I remember having sushi and sake that one night, and there were two dinners that were sort of the VIP things, and I got to sit down and have one-on-one conversation with Martin Rooney, who I've been reading his work for forever. I got to hang out with Max Shank, who was cooler than hell. I one day, because Pete Dupuis and I, we've become friends from before a previous event, and we've had Pete on a couple times recently. Pete's just a super awesome dude. Having breakfast with him, and then some of the people I met, like Andrew and Bless, who had the Vigor Bowls. I always talk about your acai bowls from their place there, and they're great people. So the whole experience, I love your gym. Like, your gym is just this cool, awesome environment. I love the murals, the stuff that's painted on the walls in that place, and so that was the experience. Like, a lot of the takeaways that I had from that, and I still have people to this day, like Seth Gibson and Tigran and a few others that I still chat with, that I met 2.5 years ago down at this thing, or 2 years ago, I suppose. Yeah, so like I just wanted to sort of paint that picture. That's something that maybe you couldn't articulate, but I can, because I was someone who attended your event. So this actually kind of, all this talk, one of the things we want to ask about is, like, you're talking about like the past and the present. What's the end game, man? What's the end game ambition for you, if you have one? Do you have a vision for all this stuff?
I do. I just ended up like so this is relevant because I just read Simon Sinek's new book.
Amazing book.
Yeah, amazing book. It's really, really good. But and it kind of brings that to mind, this kind of like infinite game that, it's very, very, and I'm sure you guys see this, man. Like I've seen a lot of it. I've really changed my perspective on business these last, I don't know, like years, probably 5, definitely, but last 3 even more. So, this kind of pressure to get somewhere, I think the whole industry pushes it, like the pressure to get to 6 figures, 7 figures, this many members, this, that, the other. And I think that and it, and there's merit to it, of course, because like you need a target, right? You need direction. But how much you invest into that direction, that's another question, because there's so much pressure and stress around, that horizon that, that people actually lose the joy of the process. And not just the joy, I would say that they lose the focus and intention of the process.
Yeah.
And so then the work actually isn't as good as it could be, because there's so much energy being put towards the next, if we reach blah, 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 blah by this blah, 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 blah date, then everything will be okay. And then fucking you get there. Cause I've done that, right? Like then I got there and I was like, okay, we're here now. Then we got to go to this place, and that in itself can just become, I would say, a journey of, what was that saying? There is no happy ending to an unhappy journey, Yeah,
you end up making decisions about the journey based on this financial goal. And if that wasn't there, you would have probably taken a different path. And like, I see a lot of people who are like aiming for money targets. They're making decisions solely based on that. And they almost lose sight of what they were even in it for. And then that's like cliche as well, but it's reigns true every time I've seen it almost.
No, it is. And it's like, I thought about it. And like, look, I think we all want to be, what is successful is probably a whole another 10-hour podcast, right? But,
yeah.
Right. But I mean, I think that, financial success is important, of course. Like, it creates security. I can take care of my family. I can, take care of my team and help them get to where they want to go. I can give back more, which is huge to me, is like paying it forward. So that's important, right? But like, what do you give up, for that? I guess that's really the question. And so my thought process, I was talking to a friend the other day. I said, okay, you got this 10-year path, and one guy, because of somebody told them that they'll never be anything and they're worthless, goes, fuck you. And then they go on this 10-year journey of building a business and making $20 million, right? And while they're doing it, they're fucking like miserable. They're just like, I don't give a shit about anything. I'm gonna make this business that's worth $20 million, right? And they reach it in 15 years. They reached that, and they got their 20 million, right? Like, okay, now I'm selling the business. Okay, now what? Now you got 20 million. Great job. Right. And like, let's say I, on the other hand, go, okay, in that same time frame, I'm also busting my ass. But I'm like, man, this is really meaningful to me. Like, this thing that we're building is meaningful. I love it. I love what we're doing. There's competence involved. There's contribution involved. There's connection involved. Like, the three main intrinsic motivators of human beings. And yes, like, there's struggle involved. Like, it's fucking hard, but I'm busting my ass and I'm doing this thing I love. And I don't put as much pressure on myself about in 5 years being at blah, blah, blah million. But after, in that same time frame of 10 years, 12 years, whatever, I have the business do whatever. I'm arbitrarily saying some shit, right? 3 million, right? Whatever. Now, in that, whatever, 10 to 15 year period, who was more successful? So, because look, in that 15-year period, one person hated what they were doing. The other person loved what they were doing, right? The other person got to this place. But the thing is that 20 million really going to fulfill them? And we kind of know the answer to this,
And that's that whole happiness thing. In the
correct. It's like there is no happy ending to an unhappy journey.
Would you want to live that? Like, could you imagine living a life?
Well, there's maybe a good famous example of this. If anyone's familiar with Dave Mustaine and Megadeth, there's a guy who has hit the heights of superstardom in terms of like touring for a long career, tons of albums, millions of records sold, millions of dollars made. And the guy's been pissed off the whole fucking time because he got kicked out of Metallica when he first started.
Yeah, I read about that.
And that's showing up in a book somewhere. Whereas Metallica are fucking happy, living life, and doing well. Mustaine has all these gifts, and the dude has just been pissed off the whole fucking time.
You know what? As soon when you brought that up, it made me think about because another book I just got done with was "Stillness Is the Key," which is great because I love
amazing. Love his stuff. Yeah,
Ryan stuff is great, but it's not in the book that he said it. I was listening, I think, to an interview with him. And it was like this kind of idea of, how like a musician will make it, they're a great musician and they'll make it, but they didn't make it big, like fucking Justin Timberlake big, right? And, he says at that point in time, they think, right, that was the curse, but maybe it was the biggest gift that they ever got because, I know, like, I mean, we all know, but like I have some really close friends that train the biggest celebrities in the world, and they're like, they cannot leave the house, like they don't have, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, would you want that? Maybe that thing that you think was a curse was really a gift. And how big do you want to really get? A lot of people go like, I want to be the biggest ever, and it's like, do you really want to be the biggest ever? So these are like, we're kind of getting philosophical here, but I think. I went through so much shit in my life now that like I look back and I'm a lot more philosophical about stuff and try to mentor, I guess, the younger generation coming up. Hopefully,
you see it though, because you can see the younger generation has that mentality that they can have it all now, probably because of Instagram and all the stuff they see.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like if you go through like you guys are 40, like if you go through that process in a time where that wasn't around, you almost had to live through it where everyone just sees it and it's like, this is how it is. It's not how it is. And when you end up there, like you're flipping the coin to whether you're happy or not. And like, what is happiness? Well, I can say like, you're not like, how happy are you going to be fucking taking your pictures on Instagram and making no money, even though you think that's what you want. Everyone thinks they want all this shit.
Exactly. But the thing, man, I'm a friend of mine did, she was, actually, I think she still does a lot of life. She's really, really good at it. But we were sitting down just like years ago, and she kind of like, we're having a conversation. She hit me with this like quickie, and she's like, hey, here's a piece of paper, 3 minutes, write down all the things that make you happy and don't really include like anybody else necessarily, right? And I'm like, what? She's like, go. And I'm just writing this stuff out, like she's got me on a timer, and I get done with it, and I look at this list, and like pretty much 90% of it didn't cost much money. So stuff like, drawing, spending time with friends. I love hiking, being in nature, playing basketball, like doing music, believe it or not. This is a whole nother story. I used to do a lot of hip hop and whatnot. And it was like all these things that, travel, but obviously travel takes some money, but even, driving down to Cannon Beach in Oregon coast, that doesn't take a lot of money. Majority of it was free stuff. Majority of it was, with people. I was either people that I care about. And it wasn't anything spectacular. right? I enjoy getting better. So it's like reading and studying and stuff like that, which, you know, I actually do enjoy it for the sake of what I'm doing, not the result, just the sake of what I'm doing. And so you know, so when you look at that and like, this is a drill, you know, maybe now that I told it to you, because it's like when somebody gives it to you without the whole like preparation thing, it's even better, right? Because you're just like writing. And then it's like, oh shit, like I am waiting for this thing to make me happy. XYZ on my bank account, um, going to Bali, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, there's this gap between now and when that thing happens that's filled with like mediocrity or like this, meh, you know, wait until I get to this. But man, like, you know, like these basic things every day that you could choose, you could, and like, I'm really busy. I'm a workaholic. I work really, really, really fucking hard, like insanely hard. And, you know, and I think that it takes a lot of hard work to be successful. And you know, smart and hard, especially at the beginning. But like, who says that today, like you could not go, all right, one of those things that you wrote down, go draw for like 30 minutes, go sit on the dock and read for 30 minutes. You know what? Plan a hike this week. Hey, go with a friend and go do some cool shit. Go. I love eating. I'm a foodie. So like, hey, on Sunday, schedule brunch. Dude, these are like free things. These are things you can do today. You don't have to wait, you know, and I think that whole analogy, like you don't have to wait to be happy. You can do stuff right now, and all of it is pretty much in front of you. Like some of the best times of my life, I do a lot of, you know, some mentors actually go like, you're doing too much. You know, why are you helping all these people out? Why are you doing this, that, and the other? You know, I co-coach Jay Ferrugia's mastermind. You know, so 4 times a year, I was just in Miami. Like I go, you know, we go to Austin, we go to Miami. I think we're gonna go to Sedona, but we, you know, we do San Diego, LA, and so on and so forth. And like, well, why are you doing that? Like, you got your own thing, and this, and that, and the other. And then we're doing some stuff with Joel. Like, I go to Craig Ballantyne's twice a year and usually speak there. And it's like, why? Because I fucking love, like, I love doing that, and I love the people, and like, it's priceless, that time that I can never get back. That if I'm on my deathbed, I'll actually remember. You know, how much are they paying you? How much? Like, I don't fucking, like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing it for that, right? Like. So I think that that's something that people should really explore and ask themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that goes back to like the more money, more problems. Like it's and like I did some downsizing recently, but I bought a boat, and I can say I'm not making millions of dollars, but I can tell you I've spent a lot more time doing shit I like than a lot of people who are making it, you know what I mean, or grinding. And it's one of those things like, what defining happiness, blah 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 blah. But like a lot of people already have that in their life, and they don't appreciate it because they see these figures of where they want to be, and they've just discounted their whole life.
Yep.
I was going to point out this because, you know, we've talked a little bit about what we portray on social media and stuff, and one of the things that I actually find really helpful for me is when I see you, Luka, on your social media, kind of the end of the day, you'll be chilling out at the edge of Lake Washington reading a book, or just like some of the little clips of social stuff, and it's like you hanging out with your friends and taking that downtime. And that reminds me, hey, you know, I got to make time for that sort of stuff. And I like how you portrayed that stuff in addition to all the hard work. Meanwhile, there's a different book in every fucking frame. It's like, how the fuck do you read all that stuff? But which I get a kick at. At least I haven't seen so much bang energy anymore. So I guess I saw you recently sleep.
I mean, as you said that,
motherfucker, right?
As you said that, nice little commercial intro. You know what? Like, as you guys are talking, I'm like, hold up, there was a fucking question at the beginning. Let's get back to it.
What's your end
game? So the end. I just got the Anthony Renna's book that, like, I forgot I even was interviewed for that thing, like, Be Like the Best, and it's kind of like a Tools of Titans for the fitness industry thingy.
I want to read it too. Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
It's great. I mean, it's good because it's got like snippets and stuff, you know. And the thing I talked about in there, which still is I mean, there's so much stuff, man, like that I want to do and achieve, but with the gym and with who we are here in the community, I always dreamed about like this, you know, Vigorville, you know, and even with this building, you know, most people, I think, when I said I'm going to buy a building, I'm going to do, you know, this is what I'm going to do with it, they probably thought like, yeah, sure you will. You know, and then I wrote, I think like years ago, I said Vigorville, you know, and people are like, what's Vigorville? Well, like if my ideal would be like build a mini city, you know what I mean? Like next to Vigor, there's a dope ass like Daru Market, which is, you know, like farm to table restaurant, like fast food, but really healthy, really delicious. and then there's a brunch spot, next to it, and then there's a cafe, and then there's a Russian bathhouse / spa. You know what I mean? I own the whole fucking, like I or we, as a group of people own the buildings. But you know why? Because one of these quotes stood out to me. Probably learned it like 10 years ago. It says, environments trigger behaviors, and the fastest way, and we understand, like, look, we all have a subconscious, we have patterns. Our amygdala is fucking with us all the time from, trauma from age 4 to 8, yada yada yada, right? And that we can change it, but it takes time. But the fastest way to shift a behavior is to shift the environment, and that's why, when you come into Vigor, why are there quotes and these, why did I spend so much money and time and energy on the murals and, thinking those out, the investment it took to it. Like, why is there a fit bar and a physical therapy in house? Now we got a recovery room. And, I keep bugging Spencer Nadolski to fucking move his ass to Seattle so we can get the doctor in house,
Yeah.
And because that environment is going to trigger certain behaviors, and then our culture is going to be each of our members is going to help trigger the behaviors of other members to do better. The coaches are going to help everybody like do better. And now you're like, hey, listen, guys, let's go to after training on Saturday, let's go to brunch next door. Oh, let's go to every day. Let me go eat out of this dope ass restaurant that's farm to table, that's invested in the community, right? Let's every 3 nights a week, let's meet at the spa right here. There's a co-working space, but it's like everybody that rents space out has free team training here at Vigor. Like, that's the big vision, because I always like, it's really difficult to make the people are like, I want to change the world. I'm like, that's overwhelming, right? Like, what's fucking Trump gonna do? Like, what's Trump gonna decide that's gonna affect us? I said, like, look, I don't give a fuck about any of that. But what I can do is I can affect every person that comes in here. I can affect my team. I can affect this community, and let's build it from the inside out. Now, let's say 10 years from now, we have 4, 5, 6, 7 businesses, and they're all together, and then we're collaborating with all the other small businesses. Because I'm a big proponent of a small business. Small business is 51% of GDP in America. There's 24 million small businesses. The majority of them fail over the course of 10 years. So it's really important, and yet we're not doing enough with it. So how can so I have these big visions around not just the fitness industry, but small business. And how can you build this out, have this massive, charitable philanthropic component, which we're doing and we're building up on. And then when we make this shit work, because this is working, and we have our struggles. Don't get it twisted. I could talk about our struggles too all day long, but it's working. And we keep making it better. And in 10 years, we're we made this shit work. Now go take this fucking thing and do it in a community in Detroit and in Milwaukee and in whatever. So the model that we've done, use it around the world. And that's what fucking changes the world. But it changes by, from the inside out.
You actually told me, you probably don't even remember this when we were there. You told me about the goal to buy other properties and build up a lot of this stuff. So it's actually really cool. You're, seeing that forward. Go ahead, Dean. Then I was going to
the intention the conversation. We've talked about this multiple times with tons of people, and mostly in the nutrition space, but environment. The environment we're in is basically a hostile environment. There's so many outside influences and stressors, blah, 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 blah. And I think Ben House talked about it, was just we can only affect the micro. And so you're basically going to buy your own micro environment, probably half for you, so you can live longer and help, but you can create that model, which no one's really
exactly.
Because no one cares.
Because right now you're either going, even as businesses, right? People always say Luka, predict that, I do my best guess of an educated guess of where we're going, with the fitness industry and everything else. But I think you're seeing this trend of, either you go wide or you go deep, and wide is, Apple trying to figure out the new, how to, plug in behavior change into watches and zap you when you're smoking or when you're fucking, eating a carb or whatever dumb fucking thing that, that people believe. But it's the point of it is that's macro, right? That's wide. But most people, I know if I want change, I'm going to go deep, right? And I'm not saying I think that those companies that are doing that are great. Look, I think we need to go wide and we need to go deep. But the majority of people, what are they seeking? I mean, people are seeking more depth, right? And people are seeking more in the most connected world, we're so unconnected that it's crazy. So like, I know that whether virtual reality, and it's coming up because like one of my buddies here just moved to Seattle. He does, he's a workplace expert and Facebook brings him in. Like, it's Facebook's platform, and yet he's a bigger expert than the Facebook. Bring him in for it. But he's like, yo, Luke, I got to show you this stuff that's happening in virtual reality where you'll be able to like imagine like hiring and firing, and being able to deal with employees and build teams on an emotional level, that like virtual reality will now be able to simulate it. So you'll have conversations with with people that aren't really there. So you can train yourself to have radical candor conversations and crucial conversations. It's fucking gnarly stuff, right? Like, and he's like, dude, I got to show you this stuff. Yeah, it's bananas, and I think that will be like, see, I'm not against it because I think it will be helpful. Absolutely. But I'll tell you what, I'll never want to go into a virtual gym and train with you guys. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be there and fucking like go bananas and high five you and like, and like have the real thing. And I want to go to the farm to table spot and break bread with you and, do this, that, and the other. Like, dude, our gym in Slovenia, we have beer. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, well, you guys have beer. I'm like, dude, like, you know what? You want to go to our gym in Slovenia and see like how much, on average, people are much fitter and less, like we have way less obesity, health is better. But guess what? People after a tough ass workout are like, give me a fucking beer, Mate. My brother is like, they're drinking beer. And because it's part of the lifestyle, right? Like, because people don't worry about, they don't have morality around food, but that environment, right, like triggers certain behaviors, and they're positive behaviors, and people go on hikes together and they do this, that, and the other. And so, I think that that's the depth that people are looking for more and more, and will continue to, right? And they'll continue to. And so for me, it's like, and it ends up being this idea of, I want to create the depth. You know what I mean? Like, we can't coach 1,000 people. At 300, I don't know, 350, I almost want to shut the gym down and just continue to innovate and kind of like support that community. And then the things that I'm learning through, I think Vigor is a lab. It's a lab for other things. It's a lab for training and transformation and, nutrition and behavior change, because we do it every day and day in and day out. And I study this shit still every day to make it better. And then it's a lab for small business and marketing and sales, and how to be a change maker in the community. And then it's the lab for, philanthropy, and how do we as a small business make a difference with meaningful work beyond, the thing that we profit from. And then I go teach that. And like, that's what, my business coaching and our business coaching with Krebs and all the stuff that I speak on now. And, it's crazy because I get brought into, I go to Boeing and do leadership training. I just went to Lifetime Athletic and this week to do team building stuff. I get contacted by like these big companies, and it's cool as fuck. But it's like, because some people have seen and they go like, we love the way that you do this and operate it, and so we want to, you just show us how you do it. You know what I mean? Like, and so. But the thing is, this is still the lab. It's the lab for everything. Every day I get up, I study business, I study marketing, I study training, I study behavior change, psychology, neurology. Like, I'm a geek, right? And this is the lab. But that's why I don't want to have 10 gyms or 3 gyms or a franchise or any of that shit, because it's art. Like, to me, is, the book that I'm writing for next year for the industry, and it'll probably be a free plus shipping type of book, is, the art and soul of creating an iconic fitness business. Like, that's going to be, because it's an art, and there has to be soul behind it. And yes, there's principles of business and marketing and all these things, but if there's no art and soul, to me personally, then it just doesn't work. Like, it doesn't really entice me. So it's almost like, in this micro, like, develop the micro to the most excellent level that you can, and make this big difference in a micro community, and then teach that to others, so that we can have a lot of, thousands and thousands and thousands of coaches creating a huge difference in the micro community. And that's how we change,
That was the big thing, is like that whole wide concept is, we'll just use Apple Watches for saying good. We can all agree it's good for people. They walk more and do all this shit, but like, how much does it actually change the bottom line? And that's where the micro comes in, because then you can actually fix all the stuff. And you have more time and you have more effort. There's more things affecting it, where an Apple Watch isn't going to change your life. Like, for some people it might, but for the larger community, it's that's not a goal that's going to make a huge difference.
No, but and the thing is, do you really see yourself, like, okay, so I do think about this stuff a lot, right? Like me and Farouj like always talk about like the eulogy, what people are going to be saying at your eulogy. And it's like, imagine somebody going up, when Kevin got his Apple Watch, turn everything around, it's like it won't, but what will they will say is like, hey man, like that guy changed my life. I remember that time, or that when I went to that place and I went to that gym and that community, and when I created those friends, and like, man, that's real. That's the shit that people will remember, man. Like, and
there has to be a model for it, because like you can't. I call it waking people up, but like I went to the jungle for Ben House's thing, and a lot of people come out of that camp trying to make changes in their own life and their own micro communities, because you don't know what it is. Like that stuff doesn't matter till you understand what it is, and it matters, and then you basically become the spark. Because if you walk in the bigger ground, you have this micro environment. You're going to know pretty quick that the environment they're in is vastly different and probably not as good.
Exactly. And it comes down to that saying, like, I've been, around, like, sports has given me that too, that I've been on massively talented teams that didn't have that environment, that culture. And I was just around, people that individually were great, but with a toxic culture, and I wanted to get the fuck out. And I didn't develop. And then I've been on teams that, actually one of the, really huge success stories, and I don't talk about it because it's like, I played for a team called Olympia, and it was number one team, still is probably the number one team. It was legendary for decades. And, they went to the EuroLeague Final Four a number of times. Like the majority of the top NBA guys in the NBA went through that, and then had the struggles. But I played for them when I started, like when I was 12, and then at 15 I switched teams. So basically it was one of those things where you just made the roster. You were like, yeah, I made the roster because there were so many good players. And make the roster, but I wouldn't play that much. But I'd bust my ass, and I knew I was better than that. So I went to this team called Yancha, and it was like basically I bet on a team that had like no history. And they had a pro team in like the third division, no youth team. We created the youth team, and this coach was like, "Hey, listen, man, I believe we can build something special." And it was almost like, what's that fucking movie, the Misfits, or the football one that was like the replacements.
The replacements, yeah.
Replacements. We were the fucking replacements, but you know what I mean. But the culture, but all of us were crazy, crazy in the sense of like, I will do fucking anything, and I will.
Last year.
Oh man,
sorry.
Basically, it's like I will throw myself on the ground, and I will, rip skin off my body to jump for every, loose ball, and I will fight for you, man. And we went in 3, like it was unheard of. In 3 years, we reached 4. In 4 years, we reached 3 Final Fours. Under 16, under 18, and 20, and it was like people couldn't believe it, And for a while, they would talk shit about us because we were the guys that were like, we're the only team that was all lifting weights. We're jacked, and they're like, oh, they're jacked and slow, but then we'd fuck everybody up. And the thing is like, that showed me what's possible, right? When you take a group of people that are so committed and dedicated to a unified vision that they don't have to have the greatest talent, but they can do unbelievable things. And like that team to this day is now one of the top youth teams in the country. It has a history. Like we created that, and I go back to that, and my coach is still the coach, of those youth teams, and doing amazing work in the whole country with those youth teams. And so, like, I think about that, and I go like, hey, we're, you got fucking multi-billion-dollar companies. Look, Lifetime Athletic is a multi-billion-dollar business, but guess what? Like a lot of times, those guys are so concerned about, like, I don't know, turnover and shit. Like, it's the little guys, Like, look, we're still the little guy at the end of the day, financially, if you look at it, right? Everybody can outspend us with what they buy and equipment and the gadgets and all this other stuff. But you can never, ever, 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 ever replace like the heart and soul and the commitment and dedication to, the craft and how much you care about people. And, that's what I learned from that young age, going like, yo, look at what we did. Like, we're a fucking bunch of like replacements, but we can do this shit. Like, we can beat the best in the country when we unify,
Well, it's interesting you mentioned small business, because I would say, like, unless you've been on a winning team and you understand that, I'd say a lot of people don't fit into those bigger businesses, and that's where small business comes in. You get a lot of those people that have had those experiences that want to make those changes because they know what it's like, and they wouldn't fit in those bigger companies because you lose that, like you do.
You do, and actually, I was just like, I'll tell you this. This is really, really hard. So I put up a post and on Facebook, and I was like, hey, tell me a memory from Vigor Ground in the last 11 years. We have we're at 200 comments right now or something, like it's crazy. And probably 50% of people, maybe even more, bring up the garage. So the garage was my original gym here in Renton. And it's ironically, it's down the street from where we are now, like 400 yards. It's like a little white garage, no window, black mold, just fucking like shit show. But it became a cult gym. It was legendary. You can actually go 10 years back on YouTube and just watch, like, we're pushing prowlers in the middle of the fucking street. Buses are coming by and we're like, buses, like, no, hold up, we got 2 more sets. Cops called on us. It was nuts, man. Jesus. But people bring that up because there was something about that place, right? It was smaller, and it was just something special about it, And the thing is, as you grow, like now, like I love where we are. I mean, this is an amazing building, amazing space. But as you grow with the team and the size and everything, you have to work 10 times harder to keep that culture. And we're in a process now where I'm trying to actually go backwards when it comes to that intimacy of space and, being like, guys, like it's us against the world. Like, there's this Arab proverb that I actually is one of my favorite proverbs when it comes to team. It's like, hey, better to have 1,000 enemies outside the tent than inside the tent. You know what I mean? And because it's like you have one enemy inside the tent, and the enemy could be somebody that's uncommitted. It doesn't even need to be like this negative. Somebody that's uncommitted is an enemy. Like it can create, cancer in the culture. And the goal is like, let's get back to like, we got to feel like we're back in the garage and treat people, like that, and like have this fucking like, tight knit community because people, because things get better and you get the cooler equipment and this and that and the bigger building. It actually and as the team grows, it's actually harder to continue to keep that culture. And so now take that to the nth level and have 100 gyms and this much, like, man, it's almost impossible. And so then you, of course, the better gyms, like even Lifetime Athletic, I got to give props to Brian Bowen for bringing me out. He's a fitness director, manager there. And so he's taken it upon himself to build that team in a different culture, if that makes sense. Right. And so we need more people like that are doing things like that. And so, and like I said, I'm more than happy. Like when I get on podcasts, sometimes I'm like, hey, ask me about problems because I'll tell you all the problems, because I think that what happens too is that people go like, well, look at Luka, he's killing it. He's doing it. And like every day I can tell you some shit that we're working on that like I'm struggling with right now and I have to solve. And that's real. And I guarantee you that anybody on IG that's like, man, you got to do this and you got to killing it and making millions. Okay, cool, dude. Tell me the top 3 problems that you have right now. Right? Because they have them. You know what I'm saying? Like they have them. And then maybe a better question after that is, okay, cool. How are you going to solve them? Because I like to focus on solutions, not problems. But I also want to show people like, bro, like that guy that's fucking killing it. Like, man, when he gets off IG, he might be up till like 3:00 in the morning because he fucking has to solve this thing. Because I was up on Sunday with Joe Jameson until 3:30 figuring some shit out. You know what I mean? And then I was back up on Monday at like 7:30 already shooting a webinar. You know what I mean? Like this. That's the real stuff. That's the real stuff. Like ask people about struggles and how they overcame the struggle. If you want to learn a lot, don't just go like, hey, what's working? Right. Like, I think that's one of the big issues in the industry right now is that you're looking at all this, like zapping you with all the cool shit. You know what I mean? Like, but man, dude, like find out what were some of the biggest struggles that people had and how they overcame them and how they're going to overcome them. And you'll learn a lot more than just looking at the fucking cool, shiny object stuff. You know what I mean?
Cool. Anyone listening can tell that like Luka is so passionate about this stuff that we could talk for probably 4 or 5 more hours, but I know you don't have much more time. So we had one sort of big last question for you. And then what I will do is, guys, Luka's got 2 podcasts and a whole bunch of other stuff. So go check out what he's doing because he's pretty influential on the way I think and a lot of the stuff that I get into. And I find I snare a lot of pieces from what I see and it helps keep me on track. So we've always been talking shit tons about books. You have a book of your own coming out next year and, I want to ask you about coaching and culture and community and all this other abundance mindset stuff. We didn't even get a chance to really penetrate that beyond what you could hear in here. So let's get you to share, maybe a book that's been really influential to you, and then we're going to tell everybody where to find you on social media.
Okay, and I got another. I'm more than happy to touch on some of those seeds.
Let's do that then. Okay, cool.
We can do at least another 15, 20 minutes.
Sure.
And then
we're good then.
I got a 1:30, but on the books, this is, I think that proximity to what I've read is probably going to influence what I'm going to say right now. I'm currently at over 1,000 books read, so that's why it's like tough, right? Like to, but like one I always bring up and will continue to, because if even one person buys this book and reads it, I think it will change. It did change. Like it's a pretty big statement to say this book changed my life, but it did change the direction of how I thought about stuff. And I read that, I think it was 9 or 10 years ago, was the first time I read The Go-Giver.
I knew you were going to say it. I knew you were going to say that one. Yeah.
It's I reread it every year, at least once, sometimes like 2-3 times. It's a quick read. But it was like, it's like I said at the summit, I said in life, there's 3 things that kind of change the direction of your life. It's either the people that you meet, it's the books you read, the resources you go through, the so on and so forth, or it's the experiences that happen to you. And I had a lot of experiences happen at that time, and then read that book, and it really made me go, I just said, I'm going to live my life this way. The way that the book, the 5 stratospheric laws of success, and man, it really did. I kept coming back to that, and I can say that, majority of the time, obviously not perfect, I live my life by that. And I do think that anybody that reads that book, that if you don't get through that book and go like, wow, fuck, man, like I need to shift some things that I'm doing, and it gives you some better direction of how to operate. Honestly, if you don't get out of that, you probably got a fucking problem, and you need to read some other books that I'll give you. So
it's a short book too, so it's easy to.
Yeah, it's a short book. There's actually 4 books in the collection now. It's Go-Giver Sell More, the Go-Giver on Leadership, the Go-Giver on Influence as well. And they're all great. They're all great because they all build on this story from the original Pindar. But the original, if you can read one, read the original. It's still, I think, the best. So that's certainly one of them. Then another one that, like, I think for business and customer experience, like I've been studying Danny Meyer for a long time now. And he has a book. It's called Setting the Table. And Danny Meyer is one of the most, I would say, probably the most successful restaurateur of our time. 25 James Beard Awards. I was going to say has never had a restaurant shut down, but they did have to shut one down only to reopen it because the prices of real estate leasing were so high in New York. But he also is the guy that started Shake Shack, so it's $1 billion+ company. His company is now. But he coined the term enlightened hospitality, and I think we're all in a customer service and hospitality business, and I think it's one of the most groundbreaking business books that people should read, and it's called Setting the Table. And if you go through it, and I also love food and love restaurants, so it was even easier for me to read. But I promise you, if you read that book and you keep rereading it, you'll find so many nuggets of leadership, team building, customer service and experience, and just straight up business savvy that'll fucking blow your mind. And so I'm actually scheduled to go. I'm finding one of the dates that's going to sync up. It's a 3-day enlightened hospitality leadership. Not even a seminar. It's like an experience in New York with Danny Meyer, with the group. It's pretty on. I think it's like $6 to $8 grand or something like that. But I think it's very, very worthwhile to do. So I'm actually scheduling that because I want to learn from those guys. And I've started like looking at, like, one of my friends is getting me into the 4 Seasons for a customer experience seminar / workshop, because I think we need to look outside. I think we need to look at the industries that, I think the gym industry is probably top 3, hardest industries maybe in the world. But I certainly know that the restaurant industry is number one. I think nobody can argue with that statistically. So why wouldn't I look to, a service industry that's the hardest on the planet and look at somebody that's influenced that industry almost more than anybody else and hasn't had a restaurant, almost no restaurant shut down in 30 years, which is unheard. That's like me saying, hey guys, let's go to fucking Pluto tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like it's almost impossible. And so that's the person that you want to learn from. So that was a really, really influential book. I mean, I could go on and on. But guys, let me know how many you want, and I'll knock them out. And what are the different parameters that you want, and I could probably knock them out.
You're like the best person for this, because Andrew's like a book savant too. You guys are probably like at the same amount of books. It's like
no. Luka's read more than I have. And like obviously the other guy in this conversation is Mark Fisher, who's a mutual friend of both of mine and Luka's as well. And he's just a prolific consumer of this stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
If you wanted to throw anything just quickly kind of about some of the philosophy behind coaching, community, your abundance mindset, because obviously the giving stuff, you certainly hit on with that book. If you had any sort of parting thoughts with that, and then we can share where people can find more of you.
Yes, certainly. And like, what's good, this is good piggybacks on the book. Cause this is, I'm kind of taking this from Danny Meyer on the side of, so he has something that he calls, it's actually his hiring kind of thought process. And in his mind, like the way that he breaks it down is like, if you have complete competence of your task skill set, right? So in coaching, that would be, let's say we knowledge about nutrition, knowledge about training, program design, external and internal cues, and how to structure group training and right? Like the technical stuff that we must be great at, like, don't get me twisted. But if you had complete and utter knowledge of that, like you're 100% competent, all those things, like you'd get 49 out of 100 points, right? The other 51 are all basically come down to what, he calls a 51ers. And it's things like, first of all, it's people that care about your success. And it's a value. It's how people are kind of, I guess, driven, right? And it's everything, like the values that he compacts into that is like being empathetic and compassionate, being a team player, being committed to growth, right? Active listener, so on and so forth. But like mostly if you packaged it all up, 51er is like a person, like I am basically like if you succeed, it fulfills me. Like me helping you, it's like that, like servant leadership, right? And the reality is like the 49, I could get somebody that has, 5 points out of the 49, and I could if they're committed to growth and learning, I can get them to 49, right? If you got somebody that's 5 out of 51, I can't do shit for you, my friend. You know what I mean? And so one of the key things is, I think for fitness business is hiring people that are close to, or if they're 51ers. And I would change, like it would change your business. It really, really will. Because I know I'm a teacher at heart. And so I like educating and teaching, so I can teach the 49. You know what I mean? Like those are all things that can be taught. Like while I think you can influence, people's perspectives and belief systems, it takes a long time, and sometimes too long to jeopardize your business and, the clientele that you have and serving them. So, and you might be like, well, how does that go with coaching? Well, here's how that influences coaching is if you have people that all the people around you are committed to being servant leaders. The thing is, even if you have no fucking checklists, like, guys, all right, here's our checklist, here's our checklist to make sure we're doing the things right. Like those people are driven to serve. So they'll find ways, they'll do the right stuff. They'll listen, they'll be there early. They'll follow up. Hey, you doing okay? Right? Like they'll do all those things naturally. And then you can guide them a little bit and create systems and structures, but you can have every system and structure in place and somebody's not a 51er. They're not going to do that. You know what I mean? And it can't be taught. But guess what? I can teach you. I can teach you about program design. I can teach you about exercise nutrition. I can teach you about systems of nutrition coaching. I can teach you all of that, right?
And it's
You
weird
know,
too. Like even if you talk about the 51%, it's almost weirder if it's not natural. Like obviously there's some learning involved with that, but if you're like a robot in the 51, it doesn't come off genuine.
no, and if you guys listen, you guys will know this, right? Because you've been around people. Like as soon as you said that, like I have, like
I know there's like
yeah,
sociopaths
I have
almost.
coaches that we've had from like the last, no, like I would say disrespect. I mean, everybody is different, but I'm like, man, when you teach them the stuff, but deep inside, it's like,
We had it.
how are you doing?
We talked about with Jordan Syatt. You can tell by how someone laughs. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, oh
Like,
yeah,
if you
absolutely.
laugh
Body
fake,
language.
everyone fucking knows. Like, that's why like it builds that up with everyone. Everyone sees it, they know, like they have fun, and it breeds that. But if it's a fake laugh, it's also the opposite. You're like, that guy's fucked up. Like he's
Yep. And a person knows it too. Like, I mean, there's I know Frank Kern back in the day. He said so. Years ago. I was hanging out with him, like listening to him speak, and he goes, have you ever been at a conference where somebody's speaking and they're saying all the right stuff? Like they've studied the structure of presenting, right? They got it. They do the right things, but but you can't connect. There's just not like this subconscious connection, right? And you're like, I don't fucking know what it is. Like he's doing the right stuff, but I'm just not like, there's no emotion, right? Because like they've went through the technical aspects of it, but they didn't add the fire, the enthusiasm, right? Like, enthusiasm, the ism, right, that Martin Rooney talks about is like, I am sold myself, right? I'm sold myself. Like, and the thing is, I mean, you can't like, sometimes I would say morning podcasts. People go like, international people are like, hey, I got like a 7 a.m. podcast. I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'll do it. And I get up and I'm like, oh my God, why did I say yes? And the first 5 minutes, I'm like a little slow, but then you get me talking about this. Like I could be dead, you know what I mean? And like, I'd be like fucking like Jon Snow, he's dead. And then you start talking around coaching and I'm dead. And people around me are talking about coaching. I'm like, what'd you say? Fucking coaching? And like, I'll get up and like, I'm going because I'm so sold myself. And like, I'm so on fire about it that like, I'll get tired afterwards. But while it's happening, like, dude, I can't even fake this shit. And I know I had a bang, but if I had no bang, it doesn't matter. It's Luka juice, man. Like, I can be on fire about it. And to me, it's like if you don't have that, man, it's cool. But like, man, maybe you should find something that you have that about. You know what I mean? Like, find that fucking thing. Like that for real. Like the thing is, it's not worth. I feel like it's like the whole, John Gordon, like the energy bus. And I say like, hey, he talks about have the right people sitting on the bus with the right seats on the bus. I'm like, fuck a bus. Like we have a spaceship. You know what I mean? Like we got a spaceship and we're going to fucking another galaxy. So the people that are on that seat on that spaceship with me, like, you know what I mean, need to be the right people. And if you're like, like, man, that's not the right person. And like, that doesn't make you a bad person. I love you. But hey, maybe you should check out some other place or some other, that will get you
It
fired.
also comes around circle to what we're talking about the micro growing too big is like that quality gets harder to find the more you try to add it in because like there's a shortage of those people and like that's why cream rises to the top. Like it's hard to find those qualities and I think that's what a lot of small businesses that go bigger have the biggest problem with is they get worried about getting the wrong people and like the wrong people is the ones who don't have that.
Correct.
And it's hard to find. Like it's hard to even define until you know it. You know it, but like you can't just. I don't know. It's hard.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say that like, where does it begin though? Like it begins with you because I think that a lot of people have a hard time finding it because they don't know themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And like, and I fucked this up. So like, man, I cannot tell you how many times I fucked stuff up. So, this is a lot from experience, right? Where I thought I was like, oh, I should hire this and that. Like the clearer I am about who I am and what I want and like what I believe in, it's like now I know I'm like, man, that person doesn't fit, man. And they just, it's almost like this visceral response. Like, I see some stuff happening. It's no bueno, and I've made decisions where my mistake is I'm a helper. So a lot of times, like when a person would be doing dumb stuff and they keep doing it and keep doing it, like, I'm like, oh, I can help them, I can help them change, I can, and like, because that's what we do. But, you can't like, you're there to help clients change and you're helped to grow and develop your team. But there's a big difference. Like, man, if you start from a good foundation, which is to me, culture fit, man, then you can do a lot of great shit. But if there's no culture fit, it's a lot of work to move this little bit. You know what I mean?
I was just with my buddy Ryan Fisher, and he's talking about his gyms at Chalk and like his CrossFit gyms. And essentially, he's like, I know within 10 seconds, like I'll quit the interview just because they don't vibe with me. And like that's the same conversation. His method for it is vibe, but like if they don't have that, he can't do anything with it. But you can do the other shit.
You know what's a great, like Steve Jobs, I think it was Steve Jobs, and he said, if I see that they don't have that twinkle and spark in their eye, like it's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I get it, because the thing is, if the person said, hey Luka, man, like I really don't know, like I love fitness, it's changed my life, I really don't know much about this fucking program design, it freaks me the fuck out, but I see the spark in their eye, and like some clients walk by and they're like, hey, what's going on, hey, what's your name, and I'm like, oh man, they got it. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, forget about program design, I'll teach you all that shit, don't worry about it. Like I got you. Or can you work hard? Are you super committed? Test them with some shit like, hey, listen, can you come in on Sunday and do this at 9 a.m.? Oh yeah, sure, no problem, Luka. I'm like, yes.
Well,
right? Like
it goes to the other fact too, for like anything, because we've got a lot of coaches that listen to this and trainers, is like if because kind of if you have that drive or fire, find places that fit that too. Because that goes back to going to like the bigger business, you will get lost in that and you will hate it, as opposed to finding someone who appreciates that quality, because that's where you want to be a lot of the times. That's just as hard. For sure.
And that's, why that's why I say with Justin Jay's mastermind, I have a guy that's changing industries, works for his pops, and he's moving to Austin. He's like, I want to be a trainer. I want to be a trainer. And she's like, what do you think I should do? Like, should I go try to find a smaller gym and work there, or should I go to a big box gym and work there first? And I said, well, both of them have benefits, but I was like, I would have you consider going and intern at the best gym in the area, work for free. And then in your other time, go and work at a big box gym and then use those skill sets, because you'll be in front of tons of people and you'll stand out doing the things that the best smaller gym is doing, right? Like, and then, from there, you can build your clientele and make a decision. Maybe you stay there for a year or two, like maybe you go, you know what I mean? Like, but you definitely want to, you want to intern. What's so crazy to me is that, like, I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm as busy as you can be. But if I wanted to, in a certain area, fuck it, let's say like, hey, I want to get even better at presenting, and do X, Y, Z. And there's the best presenter on the planet goes, hey, Luka, listen, man, if you want to intern 15 to 20 hours a week, I'll teach you stuff. You're going to have to do shit for me. You're going to walk behind me, carry my stuff, do this, that, the other. And it's free, it's non-paid. Would you do it? I'm like, yep. Yep. But it's like, hold up. Don't you work all the hours there are to work, Luka? Yep. But listen, I don't give a fuck. And, and now you have people, man, I've had a couple of people that go like, so what's the pay? And I'm like, what do you mean what's the pay? There is no pay. The pay is the knowledge that you get. You know what I mean? And it's a way more knowledge than the 20 to 25 hours a week of work you'll be putting in. You know what I mean? Like,
look where Jordan Syatt is right now. I mean, yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk was paying him, but he was paying him peanuts in the grand scheme of things.
Correct. Exactly.
I think it kind of paid off in the grand scheme for Jordan. He's doing pretty well for himself, right? So same principles.
Exactly. And really, it's just a focus. It's a frame of mind, because if my frame of mind is like, what I get, and I could go like and say, I mean, shit, like I'll get, $1,000 an hour and go and do workshops, you know what I mean, in different places, even more. But imagine that, like, I go with that mindset and go like, hold up. So I'm going to work 15 hours a week. Like I could make, no, fuck. Like it's a wrong perspective. Cause I'm like, no, I don't, like, I'm going to like get so much value from this and the relationship and the connection. And like, now I get an opportunity, man. Like I'm going to bust my ass 10 times more than another person and do thoughtful stuff. And then who knows what door that's going to open. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, once again, if you, like, this is probably the most important thing, because I know we're kind of getting towards the end. And like, maybe the most important thing that I can share is this. Like, your beliefs determine your attitude, and your attitude drives your behaviors. And like, I don't give a shit what I strategically tell you. Like, tactically, I could run you through, like, if you ask me a question, how do you do blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, all right, here we go. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And I go through it. It will not matter if your belief system is somewhere else. Meaning, like, if your belief system is that you're not worth, I don't know, $150 one-on-one per hour for a training session. If your belief is like, my family's never been successful and I'm never meant to be more successful than blah, 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 right? Or, insert whatever belief you want. I'm unlovable. Whatever. My genetics are so shitty. I'll never be lean and jacked and whatever, right? Now, the belief may not even be conscious. It may be subconscious, because we have 300 to 400 traumatic events between the ages of 3 and 8, which get ingrained, you know what I mean? And so there's this whole like, and it sounds foo-foo because I'm a, most people will look at me and go like, oh, like, dude, you're not going to preach this like up in the ether shit. But look, 95% of our mind is subconscious. So the thing is, like, if you had, 5% is conscious. So if you had 95 horses pulling one way and 5 horses pulling the other way, what's going to win? Well, the 95, so it's like there's merit to how to reprogram and rewrite, the subconscious mind and get out of that stuff. One of the ways obviously is like, let's just all take a nice little 6-gram dose of fucking psilocybin and just get it over with. but which I think I am a big believer in. Also, I'll say psychedelic medicine and things like that. But the reason, like, when I teach sales, like, there's a little pyramid, and I'm like, listen, man, like, you're asking me about the tools, and you're asking me about the skill sets, and you're asking me about the scripts, right? Like, I can give you all of those, but you won't be successful because I can hear the way that you're talking is that there's something below that, which is your mindset. And your mindset is your ecosystem of your beliefs. And below that is your beliefs, and below that is your energy and intention. Like, we got to fucking like address the bottom of the pyramid to get the biggest results, and that's how I've seen people go from charging, like, oh my God, $100 a month to like $1,000 for like, I don't know, 2 weeks, whatever. Right. Like, because they break through that, belief system, you know what I mean? Like, so that's really, really important. And it's important to investigate your beliefs and, kind of almost like ask yourself, is this belief serving you? Like, you tell me that you want to go to here, and then this belief here, is it? Like, is it possible that you'll get there with that belief? Because it's a quick, like, probably not. Okay, cool. Then maybe you want to drop that shit.
Well, that's hard work. And then that's like the whole idea of the 51%. You can't just like, it doesn't just happen. And the people that have it. But again, you said you can kind of get someone there the long way. The long way is awakening and questioning these things.
Yeah, that's correct. Correct.
Like, you might not be able to bias that very fast.
No,
and I didn't do it at all.
Yeah, and I think that no matter how good, like, I feel like I'm good at stuff, right? But like, I'm not fucking, the magician. Like, shit, even Don Howard can't, like, transform some people. But the point of it is that, there's certain things that come into play here. And unfortunately, what have been my biggest kind of transformations in life have been traumatic events, like massive pain, trauma that obviously make you kind of rethink a lot of stuff, right? Like, and reach out for help and, go deeper and kind of seek these answers that, to be honest with you, we're seeking all along our whole lives, and to me, it's almost like, well, I'll sometimes, as I'm mentoring new coaches coming up or interns or coaches, and go like, hey, I hope, like, look, I'm trying to ask you some questions. I'm not giving you answers. I'm asking you some questions that you might want to, try to answer for yourself, because I don't want you to have to, go through some massive trauma in 3 years to then get this answer that maybe, you can discover a different way much faster, because we only have, we don't have a lot of time on this earth as this, this flesh meat vehicle that we're in right now. You know what I mean? And so it's like, we don't have the time to make all the mistakes ourselves. And that's why you get mentors, and that's why you get, communities and groups and masterminds and people. And like I said, that's why you go to the Ben House's retreat, and it's like, and you accelerate these things, you know what I mean? Like, because
you don't know till you know. And like, that's the hard part, because you can tell someone that, but like, that's where the ecosystem and the micro does help, because you can make that process faster by giving an example or like living it, and they can feel it. And that's, I guess that's hard to do, but it is possible.
It is. It absolutely. And first of all, you have to believe that it's possible. And that's why, I'm a sucker for it, but, and I've gotten burnt before because of it, but I'm going to keep believing it. Right. Cause I always say this, my tendency to be giving and helpful and open and all these different things has also caused a good amount of pain in my life. And what happens is, when you get that pain, your tendency is to shut down, which I've had those moments too, right? Where you're like, fuck this. I'm not going to be that person anymore, you know, but because that's how we operate, right? Threat. We have threat. We start to create walls. But, you know, I've continued to keep myself open because I think the benefits of it far, 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 far outweigh, you know, the negatives. And that's the, you know, being a 51er is more emotionally, you know, you're giving more of yourself to people. So it takes more out of you. But what you get back, I think is priceless, and it creates a different, I would say, environment and world around you, and one that's worth sacrificing for. So
I know we got to get you out of here.
Yeah.
So you said something real quick. You said something that sounds like it's from The Untethered Soul, which is a great book about keeping yourself open despite shit happening to you. And, you know, I read that book at a critical time and kept me open, and good things keep happening. So there's so much in this episode that's just mind-blowing. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this one.
We went way too long.
Luka,
Great.
I'd like to talk for another hour because I know it's all in there. But dude, thanks for taking the time with us. I know you got to run. So real quick, tell people where they can find you, and then and bolt off your work.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. This was great. Like I said, I knew we could completely bypass the fucking questions and just go.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It was perfect. But where you guys can find me, I'll actually start with social media, because usually from those channels, you know, you can just kind of go anywhere else. So on Instagram, it's Luka Hocevar, Luka. Last name's Hocevar. You know, put a lot of stuff there up on there daily. On Facebook, it's same thing, my personal Facebook, but where we put a lot of the content, at least the training content, is on the Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance page. So if you go on Facebook and plug in Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance, it'll pop up. The site for the gym is vigorgroundfitness.com. We're still the old one. We're actually redoing it now. It's going to be super nice and clean in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Beyond that, we have the 2 different podcasts. So my podcast is the Vigor Life Podcast. You can find on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. And the other podcast that we just launched, actually, we just put up episode 15 today, which I think is pretty fucking great. And it was the Business and Fitness Podcast. And just so you guys know, Yo's in front of it because I grew up like just, you know, hip hop head, and Yo MTV Raps. So we kind of stole their logo a little bit. So if they sue us, you might see us change it, but probably not. But that's on YouTube, actually on YouTube. So what I've done with YouTube, which has grown crazy actually, without me even really focusing on it in that way, but everything I ever record, I just put it on there, from the podcast to the IG stuff to the longer educational stuff. And same, just go to YouTube and put in Luka, Luka Hocevar. It'll pop up, and there's only, you know, about 1,100 videos on there if you want to spend the next watching them or something. But yeah, that's that. You can guys find me there. You know, feel free to reach out. I'm pretty good at getting back to people, even though it's getting kind of crazy these days. So.
No, thanks, brother. Again, and if anyone can't tell just by a lot of the stuff I've said with the entire thing, you're someone I appreciate a lot, and I've really gotten a lot from. So thanks for tuning in. Luka, take care, buddy. And we're going to be releasing this one in about a week. Okay, so I'll give you all the details on that. Make a fun little graphic for you, and
perfect.
Post it up if you can. Thanks a lot,
absolutely, man. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Shut up and sit down.